The day my father died, the house didn't cry, it listened. The air in Whitlock City was brittle with frost, and the glass house on Alder Rise held its breath so perfectly that even grief felt rehearsed. My stepmother stood at the window, her reflection and the skyline merging like an unfinished confession. "He hated noise," she said, not turning toward me. "Even when he was alive." I didn't answer. The silence between us had always been fluent, capable of saying what we could not. On the dining table lay a folded white handkerchief and his cracked reading glasses. No tears, just objects trying to imitate memory. She moved to adjust the drapes, and the sound of the curtain hooks sliding across the rail was the only honest noise in the room. For weeks after the funeral, she lived by routine, polishing the same corner of glass each morning, leaving the hallway light on at 6:13. Setting 2 plates though she ate alone. I stayed upstairs, pretending to organize his papers, though most of them were already blank from time or intent. The quiet was heavy enough to have weight. Sometimes I heard her talking, not to me, not even to him, but to the space itself. Like the silence had become fluent enough to answer back. "He never trusted mirrors," she whispered once. "But he built a house full of them." One evening I found her at the registry forms again, rewriting our names in different orders, as though rearranging the truth could make it less cruel. "He left everything to you," I said. She smiled faintly. "Not everything. You still have the silence." That night I walked the hallways until dawn, every footstep returning a soft echo, like the house correcting my rhythm. When I reached her door, I saw her asleep in the reflection before I saw her in the bed, the mirror catching her from an angle that made her look both older and unreal. The sound of the clock from the landing marked each second like an accusation. I imagined the silence sitting at her bedside, watching her breathe. In its patience, it understood her better than I ever had. The next morning she asked, "Do you hear it too?" "Hear what?" The pause between seconds. She smiled, the kind of smile that means surrender, not peace. "That's him, I think. Still making sure we behave." The silence pulsed once, low and sure. And for a moment I almost believed her. When she turned away, I caught our reflections, hers sharp, mine dissolving, and realized the quiet in this house didn't just hold secrets. It chose which ones to keep. The days folded into each other like pages from a book that refused to end. The house seemed calmer without him, but that calm was the kind that hums under the skin. Waiting. My stepmother moved through it like someone walking on thin ice, each gesture measured, each silence intentional. She kept the clocks running, even the broken ones, as though they might keep the truth from arriving. At breakfast, she set out his chair and never filled the cup beside it. "It feels wrong to stop serving him," she said one morning. "Even ghosts expect routine." The reflection of her face in the window looked younger than she did in the room itself, as if memory had chosen to be kind only on glass. "He's not here," I said. "He never was," she answered softly. Outside, the rain began again, that steady Whitlock drizzle that sounds like someone whispering through walls. Every pane of glass trembled with it, turning the house into one long breath. We didn't speak after that. We just listened to the sound of something that wasn't quite rain, wasn't quite time, just the silence rearranging itself. I caught her humming once, faintly, while wiping a corner of the mirror in the hallway. It was the same tune Father used to whistle when he thought no one was watching. She stopped when she saw me. "Habit," she said quickly, though her voice betrayed surprise, as if she hadn't known she'd been humming at all. That night, I heard her talking in her sleep. I couldn't make out the words, only the rhythm, a soft pattern that matched the slow drip from the gutter outside. I thought of opening the door, of waking her. But something in the air warned me not to. The glass house doesn't forgive interruptions. It keeps its own order, its own witnesses. When I stepped back, I saw her reflection in the hall mirror move a heartbeat after she did. And I realized the silence wasn't waiting for either of us. It was learning. The silence began to mimic us. It started with small things, the clink of a glass when no one touched it, the faint echo of footsteps continuing after we'd stopped walking. She noticed it too, though she pretended not to. Houses stretch when they get old, she said, as if age could explain everything. But this one didn't stretch, it listened. The morning after the rain, I found her sitting in Father's old study, facing the mirror he'd insisted be built into the desk. The window light framed her reflection perfectly, like she had been placed there by design. Papers were scattered around her, his handwriting, my name written in the margins. Her initials crossed out and written again. He didn't finish rewriting the will, she said without turning. Maybe he didn't mean to. He always meant to, I said. He just liked seeing how people behaved before he signed anything. She smiled at that, small, sad, resigned. Then he would have enjoyed this part. The silence folded between us like another body in the room. The mirror caught my reflection beside hers, two faces almost touching but never aligned. She placed her palm against the glass, and the ticking from the wall clock faltered. A beat missing. Do you hear it? She asked. It's learning the pauses now. I said. The silence. It listens to what we leave out. I laughed once, softly. You sound like him. Maybe that's why it knows me better than you do, she replied, turning her head so her reflection faced mine, our eyes meeting only through the mirror. He and I built this quiet together. You just walked into it. Outside, a car door slammed somewhere down Sable Street, the sound distant but sharp. And the silence swallowed it almost instantly, as if it resented intrusion. I wanted to ask her what it was keeping, what truths she had traded to make it so loyal. But something in her stillness stopped me. Her reflection blinked a fraction too late. The silence had already learned her timing. That evening, the air felt too heavy to move. She sat in the living room with all the lights dimmed, her silhouette framed against the large glass wall that faced the city. The sky outside was a dull violet, the kind that made reflections sharper than reality. I stood behind her, watching both of us in the glass. She was still, I was waiting. And the silence stood between us, breathing. You're afraid of it, she said without turning. Of what? The quiet. It reminds you what you missed while you were busy talking. She lifted a glass of water to her lips but didn't drink. The reflection showed her hand trembling slightly. He used to say silence was where he hid his mercy, she murmured. But maybe it was just where he hid. I stepped closer, close enough to see the faint outline of my own face overlap hers in the window. The image made us look almost related, almost one. You still talk about him like he's watching, I said. He is, she answered simply. Every surface in this house remembers him. Her gaze shifted to the blackened reflection of the hallway behind us. Sometimes I see him there, listening. He doesn't speak anymore, he lets the house do it for him. She placed the glass on the table, and it made a single, perfect sound. The silence absorbed it immediately, as if claiming ownership. Do you want to know the truth? She asked. Always, I said. He left the house to me because he thought it would punish me. But it didn't. It listens like he did, quietly, cruelly, with love he'd already withdrawn. Her eyes glimmered in the faint light. You think you're different, but you listen the same way. You want the silence to confess for me, so you don't have to ask. I wanted to deny it, but the words caught. The glass wall reflected my hesitation perfectly. If you really want to know me, she said, standing now, stop asking questions. Just stay quiet long enough for the house to tell you. She stepped forward until she was almost touching the glass, her breath fogging a small patch of it. The fog faded quickly, leaving behind a faint outline, her last proof of existence. The silence filled that space like it had been waiting for her shape all along. By morning, the city below was silvered with fog, and the glass house looked half drowned in its own reflection. I found her in the atrium, standing barefoot on the cold tiles, the hem of her robe touching a thin trail of rain that had slipped under the door. She wasn't moving, just staring at the mirrored ceiling where light trembled like water. He used to say this house had no memory, she whispered. But it does. It remembers who listened. Her voice barely disturbed the air. I noticed the glass of water from last night still on the table, now coated with a faint ring of dust. Though we hadn't been here long enough for dust to settle. You didn't sleep, I said. No one sleeps when silence starts speaking, she replied, and when she turned, her reflection didn't follow. It lingered a second longer, blinking after she did. I felt a chill run through me. You're seeing things, I said. But my voice came out softer than conviction. You think silence only listens, she said. It learns. It remembers who interrupts. She walked toward the hallway window, the one that always whistled when opened exactly 3 inches. She pushed it open now, and the air entered like a cautious breath. It wanted him first, she said. Now it wants me. You don't have to give it anything, I said. We already did, she answered, looking at her reflection in the glass. Every word we didn't say. The fog pressed closer against the panes, turning the world outside into a blur of pale golden gray. The sound of the ticking clock from the dining room faltered once, then steadied. She smiled faintly. It's awake, she said. I wanted to reach for her, to anchor her in the room. But the air between us felt too fragile to cross. You asked once what I was hiding, she said, eyes still on the glass. I wasn't hiding anything. I was just waiting for the silence to recognize me. Then, almost gently, she placed her hand against the window. Her reflection did the same, but this time it didn't match. The mirrored hand was a second late, then froze. She stepped back. The imprint of her palm remained fogged on the surface, slowly fading. I stood there listening to the clock, to the house, to nothing at all. The silence thickened, patient, complete. It knew her better than I ever could, and it wasn't going to share.